Yes, 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 yes. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to the ATN show with your host, Mike DeRay. How are we doing? How are we all? Lovely to speak to you. Yeah, guys, it's another weekend, another Saturday. And yeah, we're just grateful to be here. To be honest, we're grateful to be here. And guess what, guys? We have a new prime minister. Phenomenal, right? It's just amazing how so much can change in 7 days. We now have a new prime minister, Mr. Or is it Sir Keir Starmer? Wow. And what an election it has been. Yeah, so it seems like only yesterday I was on the air announcing that, you know what, in a few weeks' time or in just over a month thereabout, we have a general election to attend to. We are here. We are here. The time is now, and we now have a Labour government after 14 good years. Well, some would say not so good, some would say fantastic. But after 14 years, we now have a Labour government. And firstly, I want to say congratulations. Not so much so to the Labour Party, but congratulations to all those who went out and voted. Let's give ourselves a round of applause because you know what? Voting was on a Thursday, the day before the weekend. I'm sure a lot of us were either on site or in an office doing our rounds, and yeah, there are a lot of other things that preferably you would have loved to have spent your Thursday evening doing, but you took the time out and you went out and voted, especially with this new policy of having to vote with your ID. Guys, let me know what that experience was like for you. Yeah, but mostly round of applause for yourself because it's not easy. It's not easy to make out time of your busy schedule to go out and vote. It's not easy. It's not a simple thing to do, and I applaud you. And then next I want to say, or I guess this is more of a question, what was it like? You know, a new process in place where you had to show your ID to vote. Growing up, I think one of the things that was told to us as young people preparing for being of age to vote was that you get to vote anonymously. So that was one of the perks of being an adult or being able to vote, was the fact that your vote was anonymous. You know, you didn't have to attach your vote to yourself. So you weren't really not allowed, but you weren't identifiable via your vote. But that seems to have changed now. You know, with the addition of ID, some people say your vote is still anonymous because you don't have to put your name and number on the poll card. But you know, the times that you identify yourself, it's kind of there are intricate ways of just figuring out who voted what at what time, especially with the added requirement of photographic identification. So that's a big change. It seems little, but it's a big change. I think one of the reasons why that was brought in was to kind of curtail voting fraud. Now, I don't know if there is that much voting fraud in this country. I don't know what that looks like, but yeah, it seemed like a strange additional rule to add at first. But now, guys, let me know how you feel. For all those that went out and voted, type it in the comments or send us a WhatsApp on either 07920 026 406 or 07920 026 407. yeah, send us a WhatsApp message or you can call into the show. But yeah, okay. We now have a Labour government. What does that look like? Or what do we expect? If you could tell me your expectations, what do you expect to happen in the next 5 years? A lot of people have a lot of opinions about what we need to do, what needs to be fixed, etc., etc. But let me know how you feel with these results. Let me know what you feel about the results, how the voting experience was for you, and also what you would like to see in the next or in the coming years. Yes. Okay. Now, just to recap on what we went on last week, I just want to say another big thank you to Mr. Kazim for coming in and imparting such great knowledge. That was a phenomenal show we had last week. It is also available to watch and listen to on Spotify or YouTube. So guys, please, if you missed it, go back, check it out. We are in the process of inviting Mr. Kazim back onto the ATN show to give us some more information, some more knowledge on finances. And all of this is enveloped around bettering the financial health and mental health of people from our community. So, one thing, or let me just highlight some of the things we touched upon, was having a credit card, the do's and don'ts. Very, very briefly, we touched on it, but guys, check it out. I'm telling you, there's so many nuggets in that you need to go back and catch up on or grasp. In fact, some of you, your lives, your financial lives will totally change just by listening to that show. If you go back and listen to it, it will change your whole perspective, your whole ideology around finances, especially when dealing with credit cards. So guys, please check that show out. So yeah, point number 1, credit cards, the do's and don'ts. Point number 2, I did it in the wrong order, but let's start again. Point number 1, read. There were three top books recommended. 2 top books. Was it 2 or 3? Oh my goodness, look at me. 2 top books recommended. Actually 3, sorry. 3 top books recommended. Number 1, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, by a gentleman who is a multi-millionaire now. He basically documents his process of coming into wealth. The reason why, just to give you a bit of back tale into the book, the reason why it's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad is he comes from a very working class / middle class family. His biological father was a teacher by trade or by profession, and also a civil servant at a point in time. But he didn't have access to large amounts of money. So he refers to his biological father as his poor dad. And then there's another gentleman in the book called his rich dad. His rich dad ended up becoming a multi-millionaire, built a large property portfolio as well as other businesses, and ended up handing down the business to his children. And interestingly enough, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the most interesting things about his rich dad is that he never went to university, or if he did go to university, he didn't finish and get a university degree, but he was very, very industrious in how he went about his business and went on to build an empire, a financial empire, so to speak. So he refers to him as his rich dad. And essentially, he just documents the process. He documents the process of, coming into his own wealth and the different bits of advice he received from his poor dad at certain points in his life and his rich dad, and how that played about in his life. So yeah, that was the first book. The second book is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Now, this is a book that I'm still currently working my way through, so I can't give you a summary, but essentially there's a gentleman called Napoleon Hill, and he has I'm trying to think of an appropriate way to describe the book. Essentially, he talks about, or he writes about, how the mindset affects your ability to earn wealth or create wealth. And he gives a number of examples, historical examples of people, businesses, instances where, to coin the phrase, as a man thinketh, so is he. So hence the title, Think and Grow Rich. And then the third, which was the bonus that was chucked in there, and my personal favorite of the three, The Richest Man in Babylon. I cannot recommend this book enough. And for those of you that are like me, that struggle with reading text, these books are also available in Audible or in audiobook format. So, yeah, guys, you really need to check this out, especially this book, The Richest Man in Babylon. Now, essentially what this book is they find some tablets in ancient Babylon. Babylon was a city that was around, I'm trying to get the numbers, but let's say at least 1,000 to 2,000 years ago. In fact, probably older than that, because I believe the city was in existence before Jesus Christ. So at least 2,000 years old. So this city was around a very long time ago, and it was one of the, in fact, a garden in this city was considered to be one of the world wonders, one of the wonders of the world. In fact, I think the gardens of Babylon is still considered to be one of the 7 wonders of the world. Anywho, I digress. Archaeologists find this tablets, and they're able to translate this text. And interestingly enough, in these texts, they find a number of stories or interactions where somebody is giving financial advice. A rich person is giving financial advice to a working class person. And the writer of this book basically was one of the archaeologists, or either got access to the results that this archaeologist found and decided to implement the advice from a 3,000 or 2,000 year old rich guy in the city of Babylon. And he documents and talks about how, even though the advice is so ancient, it was so potent. And with this, he was able to get himself out of debt, pay off his school fees, and then begin to amass intergenerational wealth. So yeah, it's a fascinating book. And the idea, or the fact that this information is older than Jesus Christ, technically it's older than Jesus Christ, and it's still potent and working. There are lots of testimonies. If you type in Google people that have used this advice and changed their life, you would see you don't need, there's nothing wrong with having a financial mentor or this, that, the other, but there's a certain level that if you are in debt and you're not good with your finances, just reading this book would set you up, will give you strong financial foundations where you can change your life around in the space of a couple of years. Somebody with lots of debt can go to having at least paying off most, if not all, of his debt just by reading this book. So I think that one for me was a big bonus, because not everybody has the access to a financial mentor, or even the finances to invest in a financial mentor to get that mentorship or that coaching. But this is a book. It's a book that's available in written format or in audio format. Everybody has access thanks to the internet, everybody has access to that. And this is a great financial mentor to start off with, this book, The Richest Man in Babylon. Check it out, please, guys. Check it out. I'm currently going through that book again. I've read it at least twice. I want to say 3 times, but at least twice this year already I've read that book, and I'm looking forward to reading it more and more and more and more as the year goes on. So yeah, guys, that was the sum up of last week's show with Mr. Kasim. To recap, the first point, read. And I've given you those 3 books: Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and The Richest Man in Babylon. Those 3 books. Read. That is your first priority as somebody that's looking to better your mental health and your financial health, especially as a young man. Read those 3 books. Point number 2, the do's and don'ts of your credit card. Don't use your credit card as an overdraft. Big no-no. Big no. I can't emphasize enough to you how much of a no that is. Do not use your credit card as an overdraft. Use it more so as a proxy. So if you've got the money, instead of spending it from your debit, use it from your credit and pay your credit with your debit. It builds a credit portfolio, and it also shows financial responsibility. You're able to borrow and pay back. I'm going to leave it at that. And the rest of the wisdom and knowledge in there, that's for you to search and find out yourself. So if you want to better your finances, you don't have to be poor, you don't have to be broke, you don't have to be in debt. Even if you have lots of money, relative to your perception or your idea of what a lot of money looks like. Even if you do have a lot of money, there are nuggets in there that will change your financial future. So guys, you need to check that out. You need to check it out. I'm not too sure how much longer it's going to be up on air, because I think he gave some solid gems there that we might have to take off the air. You know, it's that valuable. We may have to take it off. So guys, please check it out, and we look forward to having Mr. Casson back on air. Okay, so that's been a recap of what's happened so far, the election, and what has happened last week. Ooh, guys, it is hot. Summer is here officially, so yeah, make sure you enjoy it. Now, going on to this week. June is over, so Mental Health Awareness Month, or Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. Technically, it's over, but I don't think this subject can ever be over. Reason being is because, hurt people. I think this is something that if you haven't heard before, at least if this is your first time hearing it, it will make sense to you. Hurt people. This is an unfortunate truth of the world that we live in today. And unfortunately, a lot of people that are hurt, a lot of people that are hurting people are men. Young men, older men, and younger men. I think majority of violent crime is committed by men. Majority of domestic abuse cases, the perpetrators are men. And we need to address this before it becomes a lot worse than it already is. This is why it is so important that men, you get your mental health sorted, looked at, and addressed. You need to keep your mental health. I saw an interview with a gentleman by the name of Terry Crews. If you don't know who that is, a quick Google search, and I'm sure you would recognize him, at least if you don't know him by name. Once you see him, you'll recognize him. And for anybody that's too lazy, White Chicks, the black guy, the big black guy from White Chicks, that's Terry Crews. Now, in this interview, he mentions about, excuse me one moment. Yeah, so he mentions about how growing up he saw his father assaulting his mother physically. And he remembers being so scared that even though he was angry and he wanted to protect his mother, he remembered being so scared that there was nothing he could do as a young man. And that stuck with him throughout his life. Later on in life, he's now the Terry Crews that we know. He talks about how he had warned his father about his behavior and he was away from home. By the way, guys, I'm paraphrasing here. The interview is online, available on YouTube and other platforms for you to look at. He was away from home, from his family, and he got a phone call from a relative that, you know, his father had done it again. And in front of some underage people, some minors. So he went over to where his father was, the property or the building, and he locked himself in a room with his father. And how things felt different, because now he was Terry Crews, big, tall, strong man, and a physical altercation occurred between him and his father. And he beat his, and put it in layman's terms, he beat his father up. And in that process, I think he was describing about how he felt like, I'm not scared of you anymore. You know, the way he used to beat his mother, it can't happen again, because now he's big enough to beat him. So every time he thinks about doing something like that, he's going to remember that his son is now strong enough or big enough to do this to him. And at first, now stepping away from that interview, at first I'm sure he thought that now he was rich, now he had fame, now he was a person of influence and wealth, so to speak, that he could take matters into his own hands. But what ended up happening, if you follow Mr. Crews' story, is he ended up having issues in his own marriage with him and his wife. And there are lots of interviews he had where he details that. And he went through other traumas and abuses, even as a grown man, even as the Terry Crews that we know. He went through other dramas and abuses that he had to overcome. So why do I say this? I say this because hurt people. So I can't stress enough how important it is for men to address their mental health issues, not just for yourself, not just because, you want to be in shape, you want to look good, you want to feel good, you want to be able to purchase or buy or go wherever you want to from the financial aspect, but also because you have a duty of care for people around you, whether they be your children, your spouse, your parents. It may even be strangers on the road, that may need help. If your mental health isn't in check, you cannot, you can only be helpful to people around you to a certain point. And the truth is, as men in this community and in lots of communities around the world, our role, our duty in society is to be builders and protectors. We need to help those around us. We need to help people in our communities. We need to help young people that are transitioning into adulthood. We need to be there, and we need to be strong enough to protect them through this journey, through that journey of transitioning. And sometimes that may mean that you have to be the person for somebody else that you never had for you. That may mean you have to be the uncle, the cousin, the friend, the big brother, in some cases, a father figure for someone else that you never had for you. And so, I get it. That's not exactly a fair ask from the world of you. But this is what it is. This is our load to bear as men. And we can't do that job well unless our mental health is in check. Because your body, your physical might look good. Your financial might look great. But if the mental isn't right, all things fall apart. You know, all things fall apart. So guys, you really, I can't stress it out enough. In fact, I'll recommend something, and this might be a bit controversial because of what has happened in recent time. But, you know, was it the Oscars? Recently, there were the Oscars, maybe 1 or 2 years ago. Will Smith, I bring up Will Smith, in his zeal to protect what he thought was protecting his family, he went up on stage mid-show and physically assaulted another man because this man was fulfilling his role as a host/comedian. And unfortunately, the person he picked to be the butt of the joke in the room was Will Smith's wife. And Will Smith responded to his verbal provocations, or whatever you want to call it, with violence. And in his mind, he felt like he was protecting. And you know what? A lot of people were shocked and taken back by the incident. But I wasn't. And it's not because I have clairvoyance or I'm a psychic or anything like that. It's because I had the privilege of reading his biography. And in there, he documents multiple instances of physical abuse that he went through, whether it be from a relative such as his father or a stranger, like when he and his family relocated to a different city, and his first or second day in school, he was assaulted to the point where he was knocked out cold as a child. You know, as a young man, when you experience these things and you now become a man and you realize that, you know, you have people that are precious to you and you care about them and you have to protect them, and you have to do so in such a way that even when you are not physically there, these people feel protected. He's only going to revert to what he has seen work in his life. And unfortunately for his story, and on numerous occasions, it was violence. And that is not the right way. Because we now know in hindsight, you know, we have the privilege of not living his life and seeing all the results of decisions and things that happen in his life. I recommend that's another book you should listen to, because so many people have gone through what Will Smith has gone through in terms of the traumatic events. And he's found interesting ways to deal with it and express it. And I think a lot of young men can get a lot from listening to Will Smith's book. Forget the viral moments like the TED Talks and all of that stuff. That's a lot of banter, I know. But essentially, guys, men, you need to look after your mental health, because it may not show up now. It may not show up in the next 5 or 10 years. But when it does show up, it will be ugly, and you may not have people there to cover your back. But now that you're hearing this, now that you're watching this, now is the time to take a look at it. So, on that note, I will close the show. Thank you guys for rocking with me, and thank you for rocking with us here at Tag Radio. It has been your host, Mike Dare, and we are here on the ATN show. I want to thank the producers, the execs for supporting this show, for supporting this platform and making this accessible. We are looking forward to having on more guests. We're going to be talking more about mental health and other issues as well. For example, if you need access to help, some welfare, there are organizations in the Thurrock community and also nationally that can help people, especially young girls and women. So look out for more content coming shortly. So in the meantime, guys, I want to encourage you to follow us on social media at Tag Radio on all platforms, or on YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify. All of our shows are podcasted, or rather are uploaded to Spotify. So if you miss out on any of the shows, you can catch up. Twitter or X and Facebook. Guys, please lock in, send in your messages, and I hope you have a great weekend and a great week ahead, and I look forward to seeing you next time. It has been, once again, it's been your host, Mike DeRay, on the ATN show. Guys, have a lovely, lovely weekend. And until next time, peace.